Homelessness, crime, and declining ridership, all things the LA Metro is facing, and it does not seem to be getting any better. Each day ridership falls more, and the existing social stigma around riding the Metro increases, even as Metro increases service slowly and extends the service to new areas. I, as an avid Metro rider for my last 15 years of life, find it difficult to diss on Metro too much. Takes me anywhere I want to go. Can go visit my family in Antelope Valley, return, hit up a record store in Little Tokyo, and then return to my home in South Central. But you just cannot ignore the problems going on, especially as they have just started increasing in news coverage. On my first video, I just barely touched on MacArthur Park Station, but now it has become the centerpiece of the issues surrounding Metro. The police won't do anything, as I will directly quote them, quote unquote, "We won't let a bus company tell us what to do," quote unquote. All of that happens as just over 30 fatal overdoses have happened in Metro property in just 2023 as of March. A fatal overdose happened on the station I regularly use, and there was just 3 cops murdered and a shooting, all within 4 months. That's just a regular station on the A-line. The A-line's normally quite decent during rush hours, unlike what the news may say, but the issues going on Metro property are really horrible. On the B&D line station called MacArthur Park, a station I use fairly often, not really that often because I never commuted there, because I just mostly use it to get to the very easily transit accessible park, MacArthur Park. Yes, there was drug use in the park, but it wasn't really that bad. It was mostly tucked away, and it was very, very easily dealt with by Metro, and it was dealt with. It never got bad. But during the pandemic, I had to return for a random reason I cannot remember anymore. And it wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. The park was full to the brim with tents, and the area had definitely gotten worse as there was no longer a ton of people walking by and vendors selling stuff on the street. It just felt abandoned. There was drug use in the park. It just wasn't the nicest of areas. But, that was just temporary, right? Once the city shut down most of the parks that had issues to repair and revitalize them, is when the problem started for Metro. In early 2022, there was a fairly big increase in ridership as the city finally fully opened up. And after the massive increase in homelessness during the pandemic, they started to get kicked out of richer areas and parks. So they just moved into the Metro. The massive homeless population in Westlake, which had been exacerbated by it being so dense and poor, even before the pandemic, Westlake had slum-like conditions, and I should freaking know what that feels like coming from a 1-year stay in Tijuana while I got my passport. Over 2022, crime had increased massively from pre-pandemic levels, but by late 2022, ridership was actually starting to look good, and it all seemed fine. The A-line was still kind of crap, as it always has, and that's when 2023 came. The homeless population had finally been fully pushed into the Metro and out of parks in popular areas. Venice recently just got a massive cleanup and has had a major decrease in crime thanks to it. But that is not the whole city. The Metro and other poorer areas like South Central have been hit hard this year. You would notice a massive increase in tents and homeless people sleeping on the streets here. And on the Metro, it's just gotten horrible. The fentanyl crisis has almost annihilated the safety that was once in the subway. And the Metro stations that already had little security before just got hit bad. MacArthur Park was absolutely destroyed. Right now, the park just opened up again from being revitalized, and it's almost back to being as shit as it was during the pandemic. The station has had to do radical things to try to protect itself from it being just annihilated by the homeless population. And all of that just doesn't make new riders feel safe. It plays out into tourists just not even knowing we have a transit system and people thinking like that we're poor or something, that we can't do any other option, just increasing the social stigma. And that means there's less people on the trains now that they want to leave the trains. So that means an increase in crime and homeless population now that there aren't any people on the trains anymore. And Metro just doesn't have the money to solve this by itself. So, what do we do now? Now what can we do? Just kicking the homeless people out will just cause even more damage, and Metro is severely under-equipped to deal with this. On top of that, there's no magic one solution to fix this. What Metro needs are 3 things. Number 1, increase the frequency of trains and give every station a dedicated cleaning crew / maintenance crew on top of 2 social workers at every station. This will require a lot of work to be done to accommodate these workers and maintenance crews at every station. But this is something that's really needed to keep the trains and stations clean and desirable to new riders. And this will also help to outreach to the homeless community. This can also help to more rapidly detect overdoses on Metro property, helping save lives. Number 2, stop funding LASD, LAPD, and LBPD. Let Metro make their own professional transit police that will actually do their job. The current police agencies that patrol Metro do not give a fuck about what a bus company has to say, and do not do their jobs. A new transit police would mean that officers could be trained better to deal with the growing homeless population on the trains, and could be dispatched faster as they don't have to deal with anything else, making the system safer for less money than what we are paying LAPD, LASD, and LBPD to not do. Now, I have said nothing right in the beginning on how to deal with the homelessness, how to keep it at bay, and how do we address it. Now, that's number 3. Metro is a transit agency, so it can't do anything about homelessness itself. Right? Well, in the current political climate, you'd be completely right. But you're trying to solve issues and not think about reality. So hear me out. Metro has a ton of property around transit stations that aren't really being used, like parking lots, and just land around stations that are completely empty, like concourses on the new Metro stations that are underground. Just empty. We could build apartments directly from Metro, not private developers, to help alleviate the housing crisis. Kinda instituting a new public housing renaissance, like what happened when we built the projects all around LA. The concourses can also be used for shops that Metro could rent out, helping bring more traffic to the stations and help house homeless people on the buildings on top. On top of all of that, too, it'll make Metro money from rent. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, it'll compel Metro to keep the stations clean and keep service good, to not lose out on the rent from the shops. And this has been a tried and tested method all around the world, and it works. Now, sorry for the abrupt ending. I don't really have anything else to say. Thanks for watching the quick video on what I think the LA Metro's biggest problem is. This is mostly a rant, but I still want to thank my Patreon, Alexis Gedez, and consider joining my Patreon, as my next video, LA's bike problems, will be posted there shortly. Now, with this abrupt ending, get out.